Hello, friends. I totally forgot. This chat doesn't work on the screen. Welcome to Coding Garden. I am CJ, and this is the first time I've been live on YouTube in years. At least 2 years, probably more than 2 years. But welcome in, everyone. I am actually live right now. This is live. Hello, Daddy Ray. What's up, Bite Pusher and Moses and Mark? Welcome in, everyone. Yeah, and I just thought it'd be fun to go live before I go live later, because I actually am going live in about 2 hours over on Twitch. But in the meantime, yeah, we can hang out here. And the chat is red because it's coming from YouTube. And also, because I haven't streamed on here in a long time, there's not a lot of people here. So, you know, it's a nice intimate crowd. You guys can, or you all can ask me whatever you want. We'll just hang out. If you have any code-related questions, I'll write some code. Welcome in. And I think I can try and say hi to everyone. To Bo, welcome in. What's up, Jodu and Tariq and Mark and Andreas and Kristen and Walid. What's up, Yuri and Domi and Numain and Suladin and Emilian and Vikas and Ibrahim and Omer, who does not believe that I'm live. I am live. It's definitely happening. I'm live. What's up, Vikas and Aman, Daddy Ray, Andrew, how's it going? What's up, Bracket, One Computer Guy, Moses, Bite Pusher, Daddy Ray, Code with Dinesh, Raziv, Andrew. Welcome in. Welcome in. This is saying Andrew is a it's a mod. Is that real? I don't remember making you a mod. Who are you? Are you on Twitch too? What's your Twitch name? Welcome in. Oh, Katoli. Okay, I was like, what happened? What happened? And Enough Bane. Welcome in. What's up? OX Gamer. What's up? Welcome in. Hello. Yeah. Yeah. Well, see, that's the funny thing, Mark. I was able to spin up this old chat app, and it still works. I was so surprised that it actually still works. It like took me a few minutes to figure out how to start it up, but it works. It works. Welcome, Skisha and Danielle. Welcome in. And Ahmad, hello, hello. There's no VIP badges on YouTube. Yeah. Oh yeah. Links are blocked on YouTube, and I have no way of changing this. But here's a quick hack, one computer guy. Go over to Twitch and send a message, and I think it actually should pop up here. And then I'll click the link. What's up, Ashley B? Welcome in, Raphael. Yeah. Yeah. Andrew? What did I say? I don't even know how I pronounced it. Yeah, no worries, Ibrahim. You could create a Twitch account if you wanted to. Okay, but I think I saw one question. About a Linux break timer. Hey, what's up? What's up, Wake Up Neo? Over on Twitch. Yeah, didn't somebody ask about a break timer on Linux? Yeah, Vikis is asking. Suggest a break timer for Ubuntu Linux. So I don't use Linux on a daily basis, so anybody in the chat, if you use Linux and you have a suggested break timer, feel free to mention it. I know of one called Stretchly that is, I think it's an Electron app. This is not it. That's not it. This is it. Oh, I think apparently we don't have 7 TV emotes in this overlay, but that's okay. But yeah, this one's cross-platform. People have suggested it. I haven't used it myself, but you can check it out. So yeah. Last time you got into Twitch was watching Minecraft live streams. Yeah. The thing is, there are quite a few live coders over on Twitch these days, so yeah, it's good. That might be fun to look at, one computer guy. I don't remember if I can click links in this thing or not. Yeah. Delta Time says traitor. Yeah. This is so here's the thing. Before I was a affiliate on Twitch, I was streaming both places. So I created this overlay that combines the two chats. But let's see what one computer guy has got going on. I mean, the purple is a nicer color, I do have to agree. All right, so one computer guy has this piece of code, and they are saying that the use effect doesn't get called. Is that what it is? The use effect is running, but React is not rendering after updating the use state. Okay, can you point to a line of code, one computer guy? I'm guessing it's like right here. And I think your issue is you're modifying the object instead of creating a new one. Yeah. Right here. Okay. Yeah, no worries. What's the best way for me to run this? But here's what I'm thinking. Here's what I'm thinking, one computer guy. So I see you have a state variable here, right? Server data, and is that the one that and that's the one that you're trying to update. So in this use effect, you're actually just modifying the array itself. It's like you're modifying objects inside of the array, and then you're just creating a copy of the array, but the objects are still technically the same references. Now, technically, React should pick up that change because it's a new array, and so it'll see that it's a new array reference, and then it'll potentially rerun the map. However, it might be smart enough to see that these objects, the object references haven't changed. And if that's the case, then we need to update your map a little bit. So let me just show you what I would do. What I would do right here. React questions. You know what I'll do? Never mind. For now, I'll just have like a scratch piece of code. I'm not gonna run this code, but I'll show you what I'd do. The first time it runs, the state changes, but it doesn't update the UI. The second time it runs, it does update the UI. Okay, let me show you how I would rewrite this section right here. So, okay, and I'm just gonna, let's pretend we got server data from somewhere, right? And so this will be like a use state, and I guess does it start off with it? It starts off with data from JSON, but let's just say it starts off as an empty array, and then stuff happens, and server data gets actual data inside of it. Okay, so right now, and actually you don't have to put it in a new variable. I would just map over server data itself, but yeah, and actually let me see as well. This is the expected server data. I'm not even going to worry about it. Because I'm going to show you just how to rewrite this map, and then this might actually just fix it. So right now, the way you had it written, you're just discarding the array that gets created with a map, because when you run a map, that will create a new array. So we could say something like updated server data, like this. And then over here, you wouldn't have to like spread it into a new array. You could just do set server data with updated server data. So this creates a new array, but typically in order for React to pick up the changes, you need to create new objects as well. So what you kind of need to do is, yeah, so instead of grabbing the index, you have the specific server, and what you want to do is you want to return a copy of that where is_up is set to true, like this. The drop game isn't working right now. I mean, technically you could go over to Twitch and drop, and that would work. And so basically, instead of modifying the property, we need to create a copy of the object and set that specific property to true. And then otherwise, we do the same thing, but we set it to false. This is the canonical way, the functional programming way, the no mutation way. Yeah. So you have to return an object to get the data back from the map. So return an object, and then you basically create a copy of server, but modify that property. So if you just update that section, see if it changes anything. I'll send it to you in a gist so you can take a look. Map updates. Something like that. And then let me know if it helps. One computer guy. Cool. I missed some hellos. Welcome in, everyone. Yeah. And Skisha asks, what are we learning today? Whatever you want. Ask me a question. I'll try and answer it. Yeah. I've never done this before, Thresh. This is the first time I've ever done this, so yeah. Are we technically allowed to use the Twitch chat while streaming to YouTube? Here's the thing. I know a lot of Twitch streamers, well, not the streamers themselves, but their community uses their Twitch chat almost like a Discord. Like, people are in the Twitch chat 24/7. So I don't see why not. I don't see why you can't just be in my Twitch chat. Yeah, there's no closed captions on YouTube. Actually, I was going to try to install an OBS plugin that does it, but I'll probably do that another day. Yeah. Yeah. Got a new haircut. What's up, Fahad? It has been a very long time. Thank you for being here. And Sasi says, how's Panzer? Panzer's doing great. His coat, his hair, is nice and shiny. He's still full of energy, even though he's like 6.5 years old. And he's just an all-around good dude. What's up, Stas? Welcome in. Yeah, people are dropping from Twitch. That's hilarious. Oh, I would say save it, Terwat. I would wait, because I am gonna do the Fresh Spots thing on Twitch. So show me, and I will show the stream on Twitch on stream. Yeah. Xerox Gamer is saying, I was wondering what I could use for Docker to relay changes I do in my code from my NestJS app. Any suggestions? So, is the idea here that you have a code base, and you've Dockerized it, and you're running the Docker container, but whenever you edit the code base, the Docker container doesn't have the latest code. Is that what you're describing? Yeah. I haven't worked with Prisma, but I want to. The docs look awesome. Every example I've seen looks great. It looks like one of the best JavaScript, TypeScript ORMs. So yeah. Do I think it's okay for a front-end dev to learn about computer hardware? Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, I used to build computers, and I've done stuff with like Arduinos and Raspberry Pis. The thing is, I don't call myself a front-end dev. I really just call myself a dev. But yes, I give you permission. You're allowed to work with computer hardware. What about React Native? Please explain how to implement smart request cancellation. Can you expand? So I know Axios. If you're using Axios to make requests, it is possible to pass a cancellation token. They call this like an abort controller, and that makes it so that you can fire off a request, and then in some other code you can call abort. But I guess it depends on what you're trying to make the request is. Here with Mark says it feels like home. What about Laravel? Laravel is a thing for making PHP backends. It seems cool. It seems like if you're going to be writing PHP these days, most people are using Laravel. What's up, Coding Garden fan? Welcome. Yeah, what's up, Paolo? I'm drinking water, but it is in my custom code cup. And Idrataj, welcome in. And Campbell, what's up? Hello, Jody. How can you share your work? So if you have a GitHub repo, that's probably the easiest way. But if it's just like a simple example, you could use gist. So if you go to gist.github.com, this lets you just send a simple code example to me. So that would help as well. And then now I'm realizing you can't share links on YouTube. I've tried disabling it. Like, I want people to be able to share links. Yeah. Yeah, so I mean, that was my initial idea, Domvo, is basically there are a lot of people on YouTube that don't actually realize I stream on Twitch or don't know when I stream on Twitch. So the idea is we're going to stream here for an hour or two, and then when it's time to go live on Twitch, I'm just going to point everybody over there. That's the plan. So Xerox Gamer, they're the one that had the question about you have code running in a Docker container and you want the Docker container to refresh. Let's do an example with that. Let's do that. Yeah, it's a bit weird to chat on Twitch and see the message on YouTube. Quick, spin up a web page where it has Twitch chat on the right and YouTube embedded on the left. Oh, so you used Prisma? Taro, I thought you would have done it with Go. So you actually used like node.js or something like that? Interesting. Interesting. With fetch, you can use the abort controller. I've never done that, but let's look into it. So like fetch API request abort. How to abort a fetch request. So yeah, abort controller apparently is just a built-in object. Look at that, it's built into the web browser. So if you're doing it with fetch, you pass a signal property that is the abort controller.signal. Okay. Mark Boots, thank you very much for being a wallflower. You didn't have to do that. Too kind, too kind. Can I explain about setTimeout? All right, let me make a list of things we're going to talk about. I don't have the question answer thing, so let's make a directory for with literally today's date. So the first thing we're going to show, which came from 0x Gamer, I think your name, I'll confirm what your name was, but how do we refresh a Docker container when source code changes? So like during development. We also had a question about how to cancel a request. I have to catch up on chat to see if they still wanted me to answer that question. And then Quash is asking about setTimeout. Cool. Welcome in, Intradish. How to make a JSON web token with your app and generate the token and save it in local storage. This is probably too big or too much for what I have time for this morning. There are quite a few good resources online. If you search like dev.to, search blogs there, or search here on YouTube. Yeah. And Daddy Ray is saying, oh yeah, so I helped Daddy Ray with a Twitch bot thing. Figuring out you have an array, look for a word in the middle of a message. Yeah, you probably want to use like regular expressions or something like that. Yeah, and if you have a specific question about Vue 3, I'll take a look. I mainly just use JavaScript and TypeScript. I have been branching out. I mean, recently I did some C# stuff, and Go looks interesting, so I might do that. What's up? Depam Ratin, welcome in. Gene, we are live. Yeah, I'm just a little bit behind on chat. No, so you can actually, so I'm not cross-streaming, but if you go to Twitch, your messages will show up here. But I am not live on Twitch right now. Yeah. Oh, true, yeah, we have a project share channel on Discord. Check the Discord. Coding.garden/Discord will get you into the Discord. One computer guy says it's actually returning an empty object. Can you send me an updated code example? So update your example with what you changed it to be. I swallow? Hey, I don't know about all that, Saul. Calm down. I don't know if the mods already caught it, but... Friday is International... Again? Wasn't it already International Beer Day? I feel like a week or two ago was International Beer Day. And welcome in, Limeoats. What's up? Nico says, what about my JavaScript bootcamp program? I don't have one. I used to work at a coding bootcamp, a coding school, and I'm working on a Udemy course, but it's not a bootcamp. It's kind of like a whirlwind overview of everything, but not as in-depth or intense as a bootcamp. What do I think about the Meta front and backend certification on Coursera? Like, is this Facebook Meta? I don't really know much about certifications or Coursera or anything like that. I myself don't have any certifications. I have a computer science degree, but that's about it. Appreciate that, Bite Pusher. Oh yeah, that's what we used to do. Yeah, so if you have a link that you want to share with me, go into Discord. There's a channel called Live Chat. Put the link there, and then one of the mods will share it with me. Yeah. Yeah. Cool. Give it a try, one computer guy. Yeah. It's Indratij, not Indertaj. Didn't I say Indratij? Or Indratej? Indratij, welcome in. And yeah, if Skish shared a link, feel free to drop, one of the mods can send it to me. How do I feel after doing this full time? Really, it's tricky because I don't make a lot of money with YouTube ads, and I'm slowly building up my Twitch subscribers again. So right now I'm just living off of savings. The main thing is I'm working on a course, and ideally I can sell the course and make enough money to actually stay and keep doing this full time. But working on the course itself is tricky. I don't know. I spent the past 2 days like working on the course, and I'm calling right now. The working title is Full Stack 101. But I'm having trouble going too deep on a topic when I actually do want it to be more of an overview. But yeah. But thank you, Mark Boots. I appreciate that. Yeah. These are my first ever messages on YouTube. Really? I thought I saw you on YouTube first. Yeah. Interesting. You know, that's actually something I didn't think about. Like, we could have had like a separate project specifically for our database that was Node.js, and like we used Prisma for the migrations and the models, and then we actually don't do the migrations from the Dino side. That's something we could have done. But today my plan with Dino is to try out that that library I found that's like connects, or that library that somebody shared. Yeah, what's up, Kuzi? We're just answering questions. I'm 5 minutes behind on chat though. Oh, Pablo from Twitch. Nice. Welcome in. Yeah. Yeah, so I mean, I use VS Code with Markdown when I'm taking notes on stream, but like my own personal notes I use Sublime for. And I've used Obsidian at work, yeah. A short and sweet video on GitHub commands. I could do that. I think that, so the thing is, I know very little about Git and GitHub. I know just enough to get it done, to get things working. I really don't know that much about rebase. I don't really know that much about squashing commits. Like if I wanted to do anything more advanced than a commit and a branch in Git, I would have to look it up. But in my work and in my career, I've rarely had to look those things up. I just commit to branches and push to GitHub. That's all I really need to know how to do. Yeah. Yeah, we won't talk about authentication now just because it can take a long time and also people have a lot of divisive opinions on it. What's up, Samit? I don't know if I remember you. I'm sorry. It's been a long time. Yeah, and I haven't worked with GitHub Actions in a while. Yeah. React Caveat. Never heard of it. What's up, Saint Lolek? Welcome in. And Waleed, hello. Do I use or have I used an ultra-wide monitor? I have not. The one thing if I ever have an extra monitor, I like to actually take a monitor and flip it so that it's vertical, and then I'll use that for like looking at code because you can see more code all at once. That's like my preferred setup. I've never used an ultra wide or anything like that. Well, actually, do we even have commands here on YouTube? I was gonna say ! theme. I guess not. And actually, does this still work? This could be broken. Yeah, this is the theme. And actually, I'll point you to this website. So if you go to this website, you can search for theme. Click this link. This is the theme that I use. Cool. All right. I'm gonna just catch up on chat and then try to start answering some questions because we've only got about an hour left here. What are the best ways to check or test code speed? Different websites show totally different info. It's a tricky question to answer. So do you mean like performance? Like you have a very specific JavaScript function and you want to see how it performs? Or are you testing like the entire website load time or something like that? Please clarify. Do I use DDD in your project? So DDD is usually domain-driven design. If I use it, I don't know that I use it. But I might use it. And I say that because there are a lot of terms thrown out there that are really just putting a word on things that people do anyways. So a software design approach focusing on modeling software to match a domain according to input from the domain's experts. So I will say in my career, I have done domain-driven design, but I didn't call it that. But essentially, like I'm working with a client or a business, and the code very much reflects the actual business workflow. And especially if I'm doing like object-oriented programming, it very much reflects what the person in that business might do on a day-to-day basis. So I will say I probably do it indirectly, but not on purpose. Did you just give me money, David? What are you thinking? Thank you. I should have light. I mean, honestly, I should just use your app, your just Twitch stream app. Does that pull YouTube chat messages though? Let me know. But thank you for the money. Appreciate that. I mean, I probably could add this. The thing is, we would be seriously working in a very legacy code base right now. If I added it to this one, I could add it to my new chat overlay, which is just Twitch specific. But yeah, you saw people using not my variable. Yeah, that just flips it. But we'll talk about that. And then I can try to give you my best description of recursion. All right, I think that's pretty much all the questions I'm going to be able to answer. So if you asked a question, I'm sorry. I'm still 5 minutes behind on chat, by the way. Yeah. Oh, I appreciate that, Indratij. Yeah, so I've lived in a lot of places in the world, and a lot of people tell me that I don't have an accent. So I speak American English, but it's not specific to any region of the United States. So it's good to hear that you can understand my accent pretty well. What's a solid and consistent backend language? C#. That's my instant answer for that. I don't really have experience with other things, so that's my answer. Oh, I see, David. Yeah, okay. Yeah. Fresh Spots version 2? No, the thing is, so, I mean, I'll talk about it on Twitch, but we're gonna make it work. And I'm probably gonna do focus mode for the entire stream when we get over to Twitch, because I really just want to get some code written. In the past few times, I've just been talking to chat a lot, like I'm doing right now, which is fine. I'm meant to be talking to chat right now, but for Fresh Spots, we need to write some code. So, yeah. Is it possible to do a Web3 storage? I haven't really even learned or done anything about Web3, which is basically like crypto and decentralized stuff on the web. Yeah. Yeah, and I've actually met Scott Talinsky. So yeah, I mean, shouts out to Syntax FM, which is a great podcast. And Scott Talinsky and Domvo, thank you very much for the tip. He says thanks for everything. You're welcome. But yeah, Scott Talinsky used to live in my city. I don't know if he still does. So I met him at a conference here in Denver one time. I don't know what I would talk to them about. I'm just a guy. Like so the thing is, I haven't been a guest on any podcast. I haven't talked at any conferences. I feel like I've created my own little thing here on YouTube and on Twitch, and you kind of have to know about me to hear from me. I don't know. Should someone focus on front or back or go into full stack? It really depends. The thing is, I think everyone can benefit from understanding the full stack, regardless of what you do on a daily basis. So if you write front end on a daily basis, I think understanding how the back end works is actually going to make your job a lot easier. It's going to make you more effective at your job, because when you are making API requests or debugging various things like that, you'll have a better mental model of what's actually happening when you make those API requests. So even as a front-end developer, I think learning about the full stack is important. And then as a back-end developer, like learning about how front ends are structured is, I think, important as well, because that could inform how you actually build your back-end routes and how you're returning data from an API. So I think understanding the full stack is a good thing. Now, when you start to talk about are there really full stack devs out there, or is it just like a buzzword? It's kind of a buzzword because it's really hard to be an expert in everything. So if you are a full stack developer, like, it's really hard to say that yes, like, you are really an expert at the front end, and yes, you are really an expert at the back end. I think I sort of fall into that, but I still have a lot of gaps. Like, I'm not the best at design or user experience, but other front-end devs might not be either. I don't know. I think my answer to your question is yes, everyone should learn about the full stack. I don't know if it should necessarily be a job title. Django seems fine. It's a Python thing. Yeah. Well, I do a video on auth 2 with implementation. So on the Twitch stream today, we are going to be updating my OAuth 2 code. And actually, it is a good general example because the library that I'm using is very generic in that it doesn't assume anything about sessions or anything else. It just provides a way of doing the OAuth flow. So if you watch on Twitch today, I can talk through the flow basically. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, like I said, I do git commit, git branch, git merge, git log. Those are literally the only git commands that I use, and I'm a professional developer. So okay, all right. I think I'm gonna have to just declare chat bankruptcy because I need to answer some actual chat questions. I don't have super chats in the overlay right now. I think they just show up as a message. That's about it. Solid is going to kill React. I agree. Yeah, I looked at SolidJS recently. I probably should build some stuff with it. And so let's talk about I guess like React and the React ecosystem really quick. So you all know, I mean, I guess you do. If you've watched me for a while, you know that I like Vue.js. I really I like the way it works. It fits with my mental model of how to build front-end applications. Vue.js is awesome. A lot of React devs don't like it or don't want to make the switch because they would have to give up JSX. And a lot of React devs just love JSX for some reason, which is JavaScript XML. It's this special syntax that lets you do like HTML stuff inside of JavaScript. I actually don't like this. I would actually argue that learning JSX is more confusing and way harder than learning the few template things that you can do in Vue, but that's just my opinion. So this idea and the thought that all these React developers really love JSX and they're not willing to give it up also makes it so that it would be really hard for something like Svelte to really take over and like get a lot of market share, because it, as far as I know, you can't really do JSX. You have to use their custom templating language. So enter SolidJS. So SolidJS is essentially Svelte, but with React syntax. And so, you know, if you've heard about Svelte, it doesn't have a virtual DOM. Basically, the code that you write gets turned into like really performant vanilla JavaScript, so code that directly manipulates the DOM. SolidJS is that exact same thing, but the syntax you use is inspired by React, and they have things like create state, create effect, all of the hooks that you might be used to in React, they have in Solid, but at the end of the day, it works more similarly to Svelte. And also all of the built-in, I don't even know what they call them. They're not hooks, but they look like hooks. They don't like, I guess they're signals maybe? I don't know, these things. They don't have all the caveats of hooks in React. So I do think that SolidJS is the next big thing, mainly because you have all these React devs that are just so set on using JSX and so set on, like, they like the way building apps with React and how you can structure components, and you've got all this functional stuff. And I think more React devs are going to be more likely to use Solid than they are to use Svelte, because Svelte has its own custom template language, and also like it forces people to use the single file component thing. And honestly, most React devs, I was going to be kind of mean. Most React devs don't like single file components because they're so used to all the other various libraries that they use with React. And single file components kind of force you into this idea of CSS with component script and template, whereas with React, you don't have to follow that model. You can like mix and match. So yeah, that's my opinion on Solid. Basically, it will eventually replace React, and it will probably outpace Svelte because of the style of code that you write is so similar to React, and React is so prevalent these days. All right, I have to. What's up, Acid Spark? Red chat is weird. See, yeah, there we go. There's an opinion. Single file components is the worst thing. I actually disagree. So, and then here's another opinion I have, and what I've been thinking about a lot lately is the way, like, because React is so unopinionated, and that like React is just the view layer and a little bit of state management. Everything else is completely up to the developer in terms of like how you do styling, what your folder structure is, all of that stuff. And with that, you lose a lot of the potential like built-in best practices that you might get from some other frameworks. Yeah, and so I mean, what I kind of want to do, and I don't know, Terawat, do you write React on a daily basis? Because maybe you could be my the person that I convince that single file components are the way to go. Because I do know that people that are so used to React run up against that with single file components, where they're like, oh, well, I want to have multiple components in the same file, or I want to be able to just extract this function and use it within the same file. And that's fine, and you actually can, like with Vue.js, you can sort of do that, especially with Vue 3. But what was I saying? Okay, so React, extremely unopinionated. And so essentially we have millions of developers that have all gotten used to this style of kind of just doing it however they want. And also you have newer developers that have never been exposed to other patterns or ways of structuring code bases or ways of structuring modules and components. And they just have no guidance at all. So they do whatever they want or whatever they think is best. And the thing is, like, that's kind of one of the philosophies of React is, like, you already know how to write JavaScript, so just structure the code how you normally would structure your code. But the thing is, a lot of people don't actually know how to structure their code. And there are frameworks out there that essentially force you into learning how to structure your code. And yeah, I mean, one computer guy, I mean, he's probably just like being a little bit self-deprecating, but it's like, it's really hard to write good modular code. And it's also really hard to figure out the best way of structuring all of your folders and files and everything else like that. And so all I'm saying is, because React is so popular, people have a lot of opinions, they kind of do what they want, but there is no guidance from the community on how to actually structure your code and structure your app. Whereas if you look at Angular, there are built-in rules for how to structure your app. And at the end of the day, like, if you take someone who like learned Angular first and wrote a lot of Angular apps, and then you put them into the React world, I argue that they're actually going to create like better structured code because they've been forced to do it by some other framework. Okay, I'm done ranting. Let's write some code. And I'll catch up on these because they are relevant to what I was talking about. How can you benefit from contributing to open source projects? Typically, I would say people contribute to open source because they are using that project in their own project and they need it to do something else, or they want to improve it in some way. So that's why they would contribute, is because they're already using that library. That's their main benefit. There's others, but that's all I'll say. David says, I don't mind single file components, but it can get kind of gnarly and the files get big. Yeah, I mean, I think that's the other thing as well, like, and that is a good argument, like in Vue.js, especially with the new composition API, it is really easy to write messy code as well. I don't know, I guess my whole argument is modern front-end frameworks, except for Angular, actually don't encourage or don't even or don't have opinions on best practices for actual code structure and code layout. I don't know. No worries, Ibrahim. I appreciate your questions, but we are going to try to write some code now. Imagine using template literals to declare components. I mean, you can do that with lit, right? Okay. Yeah. And it is opinionated versus unopinionated, but my argument is there are way too many new devs using unopinionated frameworks that have never been exposed to opinionated things, so they actually don't have that experience of like what it's like to be opinionated or what some good opinions might be. Single file SFC means one component per file, or all components in a single file. It typically means one component in a file, and it collocates your styles, your scripts, and your template all together. So like an example is Svelte. So if you've ever worked on Svelte, this is a single file component because here's our script, here's our template, and if I want to add styles, those get added to the same file too. So all three are in the same place, but all three of these work with one specific component. And then Vue.js works in a similar way. Where you have a single file, it has your template, your script, and your styles inside of it. And now, like, this is just one component. So that's the single file component style. Welcome in, part-time Larry. Yeah, I mean, I think I am excited for that, because if you look at the React.js beta docs, I do believe they are more opinionated, which will help. But right now, the React docs are not that opinionated, and there's not really any good guidance out there. Not Angular, please. Well, here's my question for you, Arjit. Have you ever written Angular? Have you ever tried to build an app with Angular? Or have you just heard other people bash on Angular? Yeah. welcome in, Mike. I appreciate you for dropping in at your lunchtime. Yeah, and AcidSpark has the opinion that like they like this because it basically tells them where to put things, whereas React doesn't care. React doesn't care. Griffin says, I'm learning Express. What template engine would you recommend I focus on? So it's a tricky question to answer because in my professional Node.js experience, I actually didn't do a lot of servers, I didn't do any server-side rendering. Basically, all of the Node.js APIs and apps that I've built have been purely APIs. They do no server-side rendering at all. But I will say, I do like Handlebars. Handlebars has been around for a long time, and the syntax is actually used in a lot of other places. They basically pulled it from Handlebars. You could argue that like when you use Handlebars with Express, it doesn't have some of the things that are built in with like in EJS, but I am more partial to Handlebars. But honestly, don't even listen to my opinion because I haven't done a lot of development with server-side rendering. Final argument: React query and gazillion React libraries that make our life easier in comparison with Vue 2 and Vue 3 libraries that aren't intercompatible. Oh, sure, yeah. I mean, and that's a whole nother argument, though. Like the fact that now that we've moved to Vue 3, there are libraries that don't work with Vue 3 anymore. Sure, like that's a completely valid point. However, I will like the way things work in Vue 3 kind of make it so that you don't necessarily need some of these Vue-specific libraries. You actually can just use vanilla TypeScript or vanilla JavaScript libraries and then write a small wrapper around them with some Vue 3 code. I don't know. I've done some stuff with open source before. If you check out the this and search for open source, this video here, that one. I talk about how to contribute and all that. And actually, so if you tune into the Twitch stream later today, I may talk about some of the libraries that I'm going to contribute to for the Dino app that I'm working on. Python is cool. That's what I think. Could I explain opinionated versus unopinionated? Okay, this is the last thing I'll do, and then we will we'll write some code. We'll answer this first question that came from 0xgamer. How do you refresh a Docker container when source code changes? Because we're running low on time. We got less than an hour. Okay, here is what I will show you. So Goofer Games is asking, what's the difference between opinionated and unopinionated? If we look at React and how React works, React says, define a component like this, render it to the page like this. And then React also says, and actually it's really funny that the homepage doesn't have hooks on it. And I guess they're working on better documentation, but cool. Okay, so React also has these built-in things that let you work with some local state in a component. It has some nice ways of setting event handlers, and it has this template syntax called JSX. That is all React is. It basically is a way for you to define components, but it doesn't care where you put your files. It doesn't really care what you use for styling. It doesn't care, I mean, there are some rules around what you need to name your files and what you need to name your components. But for the most part, it provides a few things, and it's completely up to you to do what you want with it. Which means every React code base you look at potentially is different, and you have to figure out and learn what did they use for styling, what did they use for global state management, how are they setting up their router and their routes. All of these things, each developer on each project needs to figure out. Versus, if you look at Angular, it has a ton of opinions. And if you look at the docs, they're extremely extensive. And honestly, like from a beginner's perspective, like this is really overwhelming because there's just so much. But I guess one example I'll show, Actually, do they have the style guide? Yeah, so this is an entire piece of documentation that just talks about naming conventions, folder conventions, what you should and shouldn't do inside of a component, all of these other things. So this is another reason, like, some of these things in the style guide aren't necessarily enforced, but the fact that this style guide is in the official documentation leads this to be more opinionated, because it's basically like, because this is here, it's more likely that more people writing Angular are going to follow this, so when you get dropped into an Angular code base, it is using those opinions. The other thing that is opinionated about Angular, and I really just want to show like a code base example, but basically Angular says for any component you have a folder, inside of that folder you have a module file, a template file, and a component file. I guess you don't need the module file, but it specifically says create a folder with these things inside of it, and any Angular app you come across is going to do that. So that's what we mean by opinionated. Like, basically the framework is telling us what we should and should not do, and that means any other code base you come across is following those conventions, so it's a bit easier for developers to get up to speed. Yeah. I don't know if we're giving up solid principles. I think the thing is there's just a lot of devs that don't know about solid principles and don't have experience working with structured code. So they just don't know what to do. And I mean, and you could argue, well, just learn how to do it. But like, that's the thing. Like, I've seen so many really messy code bases. Like, React is essentially the new jQuery. It's so easy to write spaghetti code with React. I don't usually do leak code. All right. I should write some code here. So 0x Gamer asked us earlier, how do you refresh a Docker container when source code changes? So let's do a quick example of that. I think, so they said they were using NestJS. Like, is it possible, so I don't know if you're still watching 0x Gamer, but could I spin up a NestJS app and just say start? Or is it going to be a lot more involved than that? Let me know. And are you still here? You have, I'll give you 1 minute to respond. And if you don't respond, we're actually just going to answer a different question. One minute starts now. They might not be here anymore. Yeah, I know TMI. I mean, you see these purple chats? They're actually coming from Twitch. And I'm just using TMI for that. Peace. Okay. So yeah, they responded. They're still here. But I guess my main question is, I mean, let's just try it. I've literally never generated a NestJS app. I'm just wondering if there's a lot of setup, or can I just literally start the app? So let's do an npm install. So channel point redemptions require, actually they used to require webhooks. These days, I think they actually do have a pub sub endpoint. There should be audio. Yeah, just okay, so we installed dependencies and then we can start it. But what I want to show you is pub sub. Not that. Show me that. Event sub. Yeah, so this is what you need. And if you go into event sub, it shows you how to manage, how to subscribe. Well, actually, no, this is webhooks, isn't it? Yeah, so you basically have to set up a webhook. I think. And then if you check out, is it Twitch pub sub. So subscriptions are different from pub sub. TPS. What about a little stretch? Oh, this overlay doesn't show redemptions though. I haven't made anything with Nuxt yet. This does not require webhooks. This you can actually just spin up, point it at a channel with a valid OAuth token, and you'll actually just get events. So you do like stream or pub sub on channel points. So check this out, and there might be a better library for it, but that'll point you in the right direction. Okay. What we're gonna do now is try to Dockerize this Nest app, but first off, we need to change the port. Let's see how quickly I can figure out how to change the port of a Nest app. And also, yeah, I don't even have my break timer running. See how easy it is to find. Port. Number. Config service. Here we go. Bootstrap, let's do 4242. Depretim is saying, is there a way to have projects share common dependencies? If the projects are related, you should look into mono repos. Because that does have a way to share dependencies between projects, but you have to like put them in the same folder. If you just want them to share dependencies on your machine, look into PNPM. Yeah. Is that what it's called? Twitch? Okay, you might need to search npm for Twitch PS, the person that was asking about channel point redemptions. All right, our Nest app started. Let's see if we can load it. Hey, we got a Nest app. Okay, but what we want is, I want to put this inside of a Docker container. Let's see if somebody's done that. Docker NestJS. Yeah, and I tried to use PNPM before too, but I ran into issues with certain libraries that didn't like the way it was doing the linking of it. So yeah, we created our app. Great. We need to add Docker. This is using version 12. How old is this? It's from 2 years ago. We'll update it. We'll make it more newer and better. So we need a Docker file. We need node. I'm just going to pull in latest. We specify the working directory. Copy the package.json and the package lock. The reason we do this is this creates, I think it's called the Docker layer, where essentially this can be cached. And then we'll do an npm install. This actually copies our source code. And then they run a build. And then they have another thing? Why? Why? This is not what I want. I actually just want to run npm start, I believe. What was the command I ran over here before? Yeah, npm run start. And I guess the thing is, like right now, let's see if it actually does have change detection. So I'm not using Docker right now, but if we go into the thing that's returning hello world here. Hello YouTube. Save it. Refresh it. It doesn't have the latest code. Okay, so do we actually need or do we have a dev script? Start, yeah. So there's a built-in way of watching changes. That's actually what we want. This one. There we go. So hello YouTube, and then now if we go in and change that to hello YouTube and Twitch, and we save it, we give this a second to detect the change, and then we refresh. Cool. So locally without Docker, it is detecting my changes. But now let's get this Docker container going. And I don't think I actually even want it to run a command. So I wanted to just create the container like this. And then I'm actually going to use a Docker compose file to tell it which command to run. And I'll have a different Docker compose for based on production or based on development. That's my plan here. So this creates the Docker file. And then let's create a Docker compose. Because the nice thing about the Docker compose is I can point it at this, but then I can tell it that it should run the dev script, and I can also configure it to have a volume, because the volume is actually going to be the way where the Docker container actually detects the changes. I don't remember the syntax for Docker compose. Let's find something on my coding garden GitHub. I think Entropy Chat has some. I'm really just looking for an example of a Docker compose. There's probably a faster way to find one, but I do know that I think like we have one in here that I could probably copy. Yeah. Something like this. So we don't have a DB service, but we do have, let's call it app instead of API. The image we're just going to call app build period. This means use the Docker file that I have specified in this directory. Restart when it fails. No dependencies. We'll have an npm cache and a node modules cache, and then we'll also have the app location. And this needs to match what was set up inside of my Docker file. So in my Docker file, I'm putting the app inside of user source app, like that. So this is basically mapping a volume from the current directory to that, which actually mirrors any changes locally into the container. This is probably the main piece that you need. Yeah, we'll expose. We're just going to hard code it, 4242. And then we don't have any environment variables. And I believe we can have a command, which is npm run start dev, something like this. Let's see if it works. So basically I have my Docker file, which describes a container running node.js that has my source code and the installed dependencies inside of it. And then I have a Docker compose that says we need a volume that's going to map the current directory to my source code directory. And we tell it how to actually start the app up. Let's see if I did it right. So I'm going to kill, I guess I already killed it. Yeah, it's not running anymore. And if I do a Docker compose up, I need to start Docker first. Cool. Let's catch up on chat. Well, what I think of AWS deployment it depends on which AWS service you're using, but it can be very cumbersome. Yeah, and no worries, Depretim. Hopefully that helps you out. Yeah, I think mono repos is probably what you want, because with a mono repo you can have a package JSON that has dependencies that are shared by all of the packages inside of your mono repo. So yeah. Anything on module federation and micro frontends? I don't have anything on that, but I would recommend. So there was someone that did a guest video on Brad Traversy's channel, and it was fantastic. It talked about module federation and micro frontends. Okay, so now Docker is running. We're going to do a Docker compose up and see if it works on the first try. We got an app error, apparently. We'll let that run for a second, because it needs to pull down the node image. Yeah, I like Postgres. Postgres is my favorite database. Yeah, well, welcome to the Twitch side, AssetSpark. You can't drop from YouTube, but you can drop from Twitch. Oh, like add commands? It's not built into TMI. You would basically just have to interpret those incoming commands, incoming messages, to add a command or delete a command from wherever you're storing your commands. I think that's what you're asking. I don't know what my Docker config is, but my laptop has 16 gigs of RAM. Let's see. Settings? Resources? Half. I've dedicated half of my RAM to Docker and half of my CPUs to Docker. Are there tools to make managing a mono repo easier? I've used Lerna in the past. I think that's what it's called. Oh, they have a new website. Looks nice. Good job, Lerna. So apparently they're still keeping it up to date. Because I looked at their website like less than a month ago and it was different. I've used Lerna. I know there's also Yarn workspaces, and there's some other stuff that people have recommended that I don't remember. But yeah. You have to go over to Twitch. So if you go over to Twitch, log in, and then you should be able to send a message there. I'll say, like, when you go to my Twitch page, it might look like this, but what you need to do is click my icon, and that's going to take you to this view, and if you don't see the chat, click this button, and that will show the chat. Wait, did I sent Lerna on the wrong? I want to send Lerna over here too. Turbo repo, that's one that I've heard people mention. Yeah. Welcome in, Roy. Glad to have you. What's up, Joel? Or Joel? Not Joel. I haven't tried Dolly 2. I signed up for the beta, but I haven't got accepted yet. If you're in the Discord, ZeroX Gamer, feel free to throw a link there, and then one of the mods will share it. There's a live chat channel. Share it in there. Yeah. You're thinking of buying an M1 Pro. I think it's worth it to invest. I'm not the person to ask for that. Just because I have a really old laptop, and I haven't used that an M1 Pro to know how good it is. I've seen videos on it. People say it's really good. I would try to find somebody that actually has bought one to get their opinion on it. Yeah. All right, let's see. Is it working? Okay, so here we go. Right now, NestJS is running inside of this Docker container. And if I go and change a thing, hello, YouTube and Twitch. Wow, and save and refresh, we have the latest changes. Cool, so I've done it, and I'll show you what the key settings were. It really comes down to this volume, and then it also comes down to making sure you're running the right script. And just to really show you what's happening here, like, this is not running locally on my machine. This is running inside of the Docker container. Yeah. Cool. So I will share these two files with you. So the other thing you could do though is like basically let's call this Docker compose.development. And this specifically like runs this command, and then you could have another one that is like production. And it could, I think there's a way to run multiple commands, because for production you would probably want to build it first. Yeah, do like a build and then a start. Oh, you could do start prod. So our production YAML file would have this instead. I don't know enough about Nest to know what you need to do to get the production version of it running, but this is basically how I would do it. You have one Docker Compose you can use in development and one you can use in production. And then when you run the command Docker Compose up, you can do -F to specify which file you want to pull from. Yeah, and that's yeah, there are multiple ways to go about it. Basically, instead of sharing the same Docker file, you could have one Docker file for development and one for production. But the way I'm doing it here is you have one Docker file and then you have custom settings specified inside of a Docker Compose. And I'm not building the Docker container because the Docker Compose builds it for me. I mean, it is getting built because I specify this setting right here. So whenever I start it up, it is pointed at this Docker file, and then that will actually build it. Okay. Does this help 0xgamer? I'm going to pull this up to push this up to GitHub. What's the benefit of having it run in the Docker container? The main benefit is if you have shared services, right? So right now it's just the app, but if I also have a database running and other things like that, if you have a database running, you wouldn't have to expose the port to your machine like this. You could say depends on, and then now I think it's like that maybe. I don't know the right syntax, but let's say you have your Postgres stuff set up here, and you do this. And the Postgres container doesn't expose the ports, but because it's dependent on it, they're in the same internal network. So now this app can talk to this database without the database exposing the ports to your main machine. I think that's one of the main benefits. Really, if you have multiple services all running inside of Docker, you want them to be able to communicate like that. Okay. I am using a 2015 MacBook Pro, and actually, this has it right at the top too. These. Okay. Yep. Oh no. I accidentally closed VS Code. Okay. This would literally work for any node.js app. It doesn't even have to be NestJS. The only thing you would change is the start command, depending on what your start command is. Yeah, that really is the key thing, is the volumes, because this basically maps the current directory into the container, so any changes in the current directory are reflected in the container. Not reflected, they happen in the container, because the container is just pointing at this directory. Okay, that's great. Let's try to answer another question. Cool. Yeah, someone earlier asked about canceling a request. I didn't see any other clarifications on it, so I'll just point to abort controller. So if you're using fetch, you can use this thing called an abort controller. You can pass in a signal to your fetch request, and now if you need to cancel that fetch request somewhere, you can use that abort controller. And so this is an example of doing like a 1 second timeout on a fetch request. So if that fetch request doesn't complete within 1 second, you abort it, and it'll throw an error, and you can act accordingly. So you can check that out. And then there's a similar way of doing it inside of like Axios. So if you look at Axios abort or cancellation, they also use this abort controller thing. And what I learned today is abort controller is actually built into web browsers. If we look at can I use, we can see where it's supported. And it looks like most places have that. So check this out. Okay. Quach Strongnan. Let me know if I'm saying your name right. Probably not. But are you still here? And do you still want to know about setTimeout? You have 1 minute to respond. Yeah, I mean, I remember using Oh yeah. So D'Angelo, this is how I've done it before, but apparently they are saying it is deprecated. So Axios is saying you should use abort controller instead. But yeah, this is the way I've done it. They used to have this built-in thing called a cancellation token. So yeah. Okay. What should I call you? Is it Quash? Quash? The React-like svelte framework is called SolidJS. Here it is. It's the next big thing. It's like they've hit the sweet spot of basically appealing to React developers while also doing what front-end framework should have been doing the whole time anyways. Okay, so they're asking about setTimeout. Let's do a quick example. Yeah. Cool. Hello. Cool. So what we're going to do is we're going to show some code that runs synchronously first. And when we look at this code, we would expect it to run in this order, right? Console.log 1, hello. Console log 2, hello. Console log 3, hello. And hello to Alka. Welcome in, Alka. So we have 3 console logs, and when I run this code, it should run in order. So I'm going to use node.js to run this code, but just know you could put this code on a web page and it would work in the same way. So essentially, like if I created an HTML file and I added a reference to this script, if I opened up the console, it would run like this. And you can see it runs in order, 1, 2, 3. setTimeout allows us to execute code at a later time. So if I use setTimeout, it accepts a function and then it accepts a timeout. So let's do 1 second, and then we can put some code inside of it, like this. So even though this code reads from top to bottom, this will actually execute in 1 second. So whenever we run this code, we'll see 1 hello. This will get, will fire off, but it's not going to run the code yet. We'll see 3 hello, and then we'll see 2 hello after 1 second. So now if we run the code, we'll do this, and you can see that the script doesn't immediately exit. You can see that it knows that it's waiting for something to happen, and you can see that it runs out of order now. We have 1, then 3, and then 2 1 second later. So the idea with setTimeout is basically you can pass this function in, and that's the stuff you want to do later, and this is how much later. So we have stuff to do later is this function, and then how much later in milliseconds is the second argument. Like that. So basically this allows us to execute code at a later time. How does it do that? The event loop. And I don't really have the time or really even the knowledge to explain it all right now, but I will point you to a really good source on it. So if you search YouTube for JavaScript event loop, there's 2 really good conference talks that explain it really well. There's this one, and then there's this one. So if you want to learn about like how does this actually work, watch these 2 videos. From a high level, I explain basically we can execute code at a later time. Awesome. And then so the other thing I'll show is how do you stop this from happening. So setTimeout actually returns what's called a well, not what's called, it's a timeout ID. Oh yeah, and that's a good another thing to demonstrate, Halil. So if we set time in milliseconds to 0, this will still execute after this. Let's watch it. So it still happens instantly, but we don't see the second one logged until all the other code has run. And that has to do with the event loop and the fact that this is a web API. It gets fired off, and then 0 seconds later it gets pushed onto the queue. So yeah, that's another interesting thing to note. Even if it's 0 seconds, we still aren't going to see it run until all of the rest of the synchronous code has run. Yeah, and then the other thing I'll show is this timeout ID. So whenever you call setTimeout, it returns an ID, and that actually lets you clear the timeout, which means if this function has not run yet, if we haven't reached this amount of time, it will not run at all. So if I do this, and then I do a clear timeout, which is another thing that's built in, with the timeout ID, and because I'm clearing it immediately, this code will not run. Basically, like, we set up the timeout and then I clear it, so we're gonna see we're gonna see 1 hello and 3 hello, but we will not see 3 hello or 2 hello. So that's another thing that you can do, is basically cancel it, because this could be long running, right? Let's say it's 10 seconds instead of 1 second, and some other piece of code is doing something else. You could actually clear it from that other piece of code. Is there anything else you would like to know about setTimeout, or what questions do you have about setTimeout? Alchazing, the return value is different in Node. It's news to me. I thought, like, in the browser, isn't it just, oh yeah, in the browser, I'm pretty sure it's literally just a number, right? I thought, but you don't really have to worry about what gets returned here. Just know that if you pass it into clear timeout, it'll clear it up. What about clearing a 0 millisecond timeout? That would still work. Yeah, so because this code, this is going to execute like this. Set the timeout, clear it, then run this. That would still work if you've done it synchronously like this. So because this is running like immediately after, and there's other code beneath it, it should clear it. Let's see. Yeah, so that cleared it. However, let's see if there's no code after it. Yeah, so that, as long as this code is run synchronously, meaning like almost immediately after it, or there's other code below it, then yeah, it's actually going to clear it out. So yeah. Can you explain nested return in the function? Here? I'm not doing it here, or do you just mean in general? Yeah. Yeah, and so we can talk about setInterval too. That works a little bit differently. I mean, it's a similar idea that basically you can say, call this function later on, but setInterval, instead of just doing it once, we'll call it over and over and over again. So if I have a setInterval, and let's say every 1 second, I want to log, hello. What this will do is it sets up an interval, and every second it's going to log hello, and it will just run forever unless I cancel it. So 1 second, boom. 1 second, boom. 1 second, 1 second. So it's just going to run forever because there's also this thing called a clear timeout built in, and it works in a similar way. Or sorry, a clear interval is what it's called. So we can call this the interval ID, and then over here we can say clear interval. Pass that in, and then, I mean, if we run this, it just doesn't do anything. But what if we combine the two things we've learned about? So let's say in 5 seconds, I want to clear the interval. So this should only log 5 times? Might only log 4 times. 4 times. And that's because it takes 1 second before the first one is logged. But so you saw how basically I said, all right, after 5 seconds, let's not do this interval anymore? Yeah. Okay, Quatch is asking, what if the main thread never runs out of events to handle? The set timeout will never be run even after the timeout? Yeah, and at that point, you basically you've just locked up the main thread. But that's a good way to think about this, because and when you watch that video about the event loop, you'll see basically every function that gets called and every piece of code that runs gets pushed onto this thing called the call stack. And if that call stack never clears out, there's never going to be a time where we can actually run through the queue of things that have been pushed into the queue in the background. That said, you probably would run into a Stack Overflow before you run into these things never running, because eventually the call stack will just be way too big, and So yeah, but that's a good way to think about it. Basically, if the call stack was completely full, we're never going to get to these until that call stack is actually emptied out. Is there a way to return multiple values, or is it only possible using an object? Yeah, either objects or arrays are how you do it in JavaScript. We don't have tuples. We don't have multiple returns. You basically just create an array or create an object. What's the computational complexity of this one? Constant time, because this is not this code is not dependent on any inputs, so it doesn't change based on the inputs. So the complexity is constant. Let's say you set a timeout for 500 milliseconds, then have a long-running synchronous task, then clear the interval. It will not even run if it passed the 5 milliseconds mark. Yeah, I believe so. Yes, I don't have a good way of testing that without writing a bunch of code, but that is my understanding of how it would work. Because basically, before the call stack needs to be flushed out before anything that was set for a timeout or an interval is going to get called. And the code to clear that timeout or to clear that interval is running within the call stack. So that's my understanding, is basically that would run first, and so you wouldn't see the other thing. Yeah. Oh, were you working with a promise? That's why. Oh, okay, yeah. I'm okay. Now I understand. I totally forgot. Do I still have your code in here? Yeah, we're like 20 minutes away from Twitch. I totally forgot you were running a promise. So you actually need to await a Promise.all. That's the other issue. Where did your code go? I think I put it in React. Yeah, it's in here. How did nobody catch that? Yeah, so basically this map, okay, let's go back to the example from earlier. This map is going to return an array of promises because it has an async function. So what you actually need to do is do await Promise.all with this. That actually was probably the issue before. That's what you want. So Promise.all, then you can do all the stuff inside of here. You can still just have a return like this, totally fine. But you need to wait for all of these to complete because you are making an API request. This is the fix, one computer guy. Wrap that map and await Promise.all. Or if you can't await here, you can say Promise.all, then set server data, like that. Like that, okay. All right, I might have time for one more question. Let's see. Sure, yeah, so you can look into Promise.all settled. Essentially, Promise.all, if any one of those fetch fails, all of anyone after them are going to get canceled, and it all fails. If you want all of them to complete regardless of if they fail or not, then you would use all settled. But if you saw one computer guy's code, he was wrapping it in a try-catch. So you actually don't need all settled in that scenario because he had the logic where if it fails, we'll actually do want to return this instead. So yeah, okay. Ahmad asked about JSON Web Tokens. We don't really have the time to talk about that. Endrotej is saying make a short and sweet video on GitHub commands. I don't know if I can make a short and sweet video, but I'll tell you these are all the things I know about Git. Git init will let you create a new repository. A git ignore file will prevent certain files from being committed. Git status will tell you what has changed. Git add period will add all of the changes in the current directory and below. Git add -a will add all of the changes regardless of if they're above the directory or below the directory. I typically always just go to the root of the project and do git add period. And then git commit with a message. Commits that specific change. If I want to push that up, I can do git push. Here I can do the remote name and then the branch name. So what you typically always see is git push origin master. This means you have a local remote named origin and you're pushing it to a branch called master. Or these days we're pushing to main. Oh yeah, there's no statuses or teams on this overlay. So yeah, I know how to do that. I guess also we would want to do a git branch branch name, and this will create a branch. If I do git merge branch name, this will merge branch name into the current branch that I have checked out. If I do a git pull, this will pull all of the remote branches and make them available to me locally, and it pulls some other things as well. Something like that. I'm basically just saying what I have memorized, and this is all I ever need to know. Yeah, and then we'll talk about git checkout. So git checkout branch name will create a branch with that given name. And then git branch dash capital D will delete that branch locally. Yeah, and then I have aliases for these. So on stream, you probably do, I don't know if I do this, but GSS is an alias I have set up for that. I have that alias set up for that. I have GCM for this. Yeah. Yeah, git rebase and also fetch and pull is always confusing. I have literally, I mean, maybe once in my entire 15+ year career, I have used a rebase. And some devs might think that's blasphemy, but I've gotten everything I needed to get done with that. And especially because if you're using a tool like GitHub, and you're using like branches, GitHub allows you to squash commits within a pull request. And that's, I guess that's not the same thing as a rebase, but that is what you would do is if you're doing like a squash in the CLI. Yeah. Yeah, I don't have git config memorized, but you should look up the commands for git config, and that should be the first thing you ever do, because git config will set up your username, your email, your preferred editor, and stuff like that. I'm trying to think, are there any other commands that I actually know? I've never used git switch. I don't think... Yeah, you're totally right. Yeah, so git pull will pull from a remote and will merge all of those changes into whatever branch you're on right now. Yeah, thank you for mentioning that, Leonardo. And this is typically the only one I use. The one I was thinking of was git fetch, because git fetch won't modify your current branch, but it will make any remote branches available locally. And then a git pull is like the same thing as doing a git fetch and then a git merge main, if you weren't on the main branch, something like that. Yeah, GitHub Desktop will let you do all of these things interactively. Yeah, I have used cherry pick before. So say things I look up if I need them. Cherry pick is cool because you can pick a specific commit and then merge it into the current branch that you're on. Rebase is useful. I don't know if squash is even a command, but there's... And I honestly, I don't even know when rebase is useful. Oh yeah, I use git stash a lot. So if you have local changes and you don't want to commit them, but you might want to use them later, you can use git stash. It'll take all of your uncommitted changes and then put them into a stack. And then you could like pull down a branch, and then you could pop off the stash stack, and that would merge it there. Yeah. Oh yeah, I saw your question earlier. I don't know much about module federation and micro frontends. I will link you to that video that I was talking about. Let's find it. Brad Traversy, or really Traversy Media, micro frontends. Maybe it wasn't on Traversy Media. Jack Harrington is the guy. Definitely look into him. He's got a lot of really good stuff on like module federation and all that. And also, he just did a video on bun versus fresh. How do you compare the two? They're completely different things. But watch his video and find out. But yeah, if you check him out, he's done some stuff on module federation, and I think he's a good teacher. So, oh yeah, you could do git rm. I don't ever remember the syntax, so I always look it up. Handling merge conflicts, I just do in the editor. Like I'm not doing from the command line. What's up, the She-Boss? Welcome in. Yeah, we tried Midjourney like 2 streams ago. Yeah, you can do a reset, but I always look it up if I need it. Oh yeah, I've used to git push, force push. I've force pushed a lot too. Force, like basically if the remote is not in sync with your local and you do a -F, it'll basically replace the remote with your local stuff. Yeah. Oh, you're just in luck, just Alexander. Literally, click up my, click on my channel, go to videos, and the second to most recent video is literally me talking about my Mac setup and everything. And then I also have a dev.to post on it. Oh, hey, Pranjal. Pranjal wrote an article about me. Set up a Mac? I have found that the search feature on dev.to is lacking. Like, it's really hard for me to find stuff on here. Honestly, if you click this YouTube video and you look in the description, there is a link to the dev.to article. And I basically have all the commands and apps written out, so you can copy paste stuff if you really want to. I think you're right about that. Git checkout -b. Create the branch. Yeah, I guess I also use git remote, which tells me what remotes I have locally. Cool. That's it. This is all I know about Git. All right, let's see if there's anything else. Add live chat messages to this app. I'm not going to do that just because this is old. Honestly, though, I'm not opposed to doing, what do you call this? Like a pre-stream, a pre-game before the Twitch stream. So maybe we will start using like this Twitch chat overlay thing more. I don't know. All right, we're going to explain this last thing, and then I have to go because we're going to go stream over on Twitch. So, this question comes from Timon, who says, I saw some people using bang bang, or exclamation mark, my variable. What does the double negation do? Let's talk about this. All right. We will start here. We have a Boolean variable that's initialized to true, and if we log it out, node.js will tell us, yes, it is true. Okay. If we do not variable name, that will flip it. So if it was true, it now becomes false. And so if we look at not cool, that of course will be false. Easy enough. So that's the basics of not. And then if we create another one, really is cool, and then we do a not of is cool, this will just get flipped back to true. So think about this. This is true, then it's false, and then the opposite of false is true. So really is cool will now be true. So that's the basics. But the place you see this most often is if you're dealing with truthy or falsy values. You may not actually be dealing with booleans. You may be dealing with something that might be undefined and or may or may not be undefined. And that's why people use this. So if we have something like person, and let's say we got this back from an API request, and it's an object, and you could say something like person exists is not person. You can say really like person has a value. Person is truthy. It's really what this means. Because so now that person has an object inside of it and we not it, so not of an object is going to be false because an object is a truthy value. So not true is false and then not false is true. So person is truthy gives us back true. But let's say you called the API and you got back undefined. Now this is going, person is truthy will be false because false not becomes true and not true becomes false. So now we get, well, I gotta save it. Now we get false. So really, yeah, I mean, yeah, and that's another thing you could see this as. Basically, we're converting something that's not a Boolean into a Boolean. And if it has a value, it's true. If it doesn't have a value, it is false. Yeah. You got this exclamation mark code review comment for validating something not equals undefined. Yeah, and I guess there's a better way of not better, but there's another way of doing this that's potentially a little bit more clear, because you could say like if person does not equal undefined, person is truthy is true. Else, if it is undefined, this should be set to false. And so this if statement here is like very, very clear as to what it's doing, very explicit, but this does the same thing. So this is essentially equivalent to this, and it's really not even undefined. It's like this. So if person doesn't have a value, then wait. Yeah, you would also want to check for null, depending on how you write your stuff, because null and undefined are truthy. Also, sorry, null and undefined are falsy, not truthy. So you would checking for 0. Basically, check for all the falsy values. Yeah. Does it work the same way with null values? If you write your code like this, yes. But if you wrote it as just undefined, it would not work. You need to specify undefined and null separately. Yeah. My keyboard sounds so good. Oh, appreciate that. Let me get you the link. Hey. We should have a keyboard command. I guess we have a... There it is. You can check out the gear. Coding.garden/gear talks about all my stuff. I've used this keyboard in the past. Right now, the keyboard that's sitting in front of me is... No, it is this one. This is the one that's sitting in front of me right now. But I have the RGB version, and I have the one that has brown switches. But I have the black version. But they're brown switches. That's what sounds like this. I will say though, and I'll let you hear what this one sounds like. I really like this keyboard. So this is one that I actually carry around with me. I bought this little carrying case. It fits inside it perfectly, so I can take my mechanical keyboard on the go. And it looks really cool. Like, I like the gray and the black and the red. But this one does have red switches. It's a little more clicky. Oh yeah, we gotta go stream on Twitch now. not late. I'm only a minute late. But yeah, so I can actually like throw this in my backpack, and it's got a little spot for like my mouse and stuff like that. But I'll let you hear what this one sounds like. Versus yeah, and what I like about this one is it has Bluetooth. It also can just plug in via wire, and it has 2.4 gigahertz. So you can pick between how you want to plug it in. So I really like this one. It's nice and portable. All right, I gotta go, everyone. Thank you all for the questions. But you should go check me out on Twitch, because we're about to write some TypeScript code and work on a big old app. Yeah. So, but I mean, I like the aesthetic of this. Just the colors are really cool on this one. Cool. All right. So anybody over here on YouTube, please come on over to Twitch. It's gonna be a fun time. We're working on this thing called Fresh Spots, which is a Dino and Fresh application, and we're going to be writing some code, some TypeScript code. So click that link. I'm going to go live over there right now, and it's going to be a good time. So thank you all for tuning in here. I feel like we should do this at least once a week. I feel like there are quite a few people here on YouTube that we don't normally see on Twitch, and it was good seeing all your faces. Thank you for the questions. Sorry if I didn't get to your question. But we'll see you over on Twitch. Yeah. Just don't mention it, One Computer Guy. You can use the word, but don't. Unless you're talking about steamed buns or porked buns. All right, everyone. See you later. Thanks for anybody that subbed while we were here. Thank you for all the supports. I know I got like a member and like $2 from David as well. Okay, see you later. And the rate is click the link. I'll give the link to you one more time just so you don't lose it. Click that link. We'll see you over there. Alrighty, everyone. See ya.